Millionaire slapped his wife and divorced her for being barren. She returned with triplet and broke him. The slap echoed through the kitchen like a gunshot. Brielle's head snapped sideways. Pain exploded across her cheek, white-hot and blinding. For 3 seconds, the world stopped. No sound, no movement, just the taste of copper in her mouth and the imprint of Marcus's hand burning into her skin. She touched her face slowly. Her fingers came away wet. Blood from where her teeth had cut the inside of her cheek. Marcus stood 2 feet away, chest heaving, hands still raised like he couldn't believe what he'd just done. But his eyes held no apology, only rage. Marcus. Her voice cracked. Don't. He pointed at her, finger trembling. Don't say my name like that. Like you're the victim here. The medical envelope lay on the counter between them. White paper with the hospital logo. 3 weeks of waiting. Reduced to 2 pages of clinical language that said her body was broken. Severe endometrial scarring. Diminished ovarian reserve. Natural conception unlikely. She'd rehearsed how to tell him. Had practiced keeping her voice steady, explaining the treatment options, reminding him they could still have a family through other means. But the moment she'd handed him that envelope, his face had changed into something she didn't recognize. Do you understand what you've done to me? Marcus's voice was low now, dangerous. 3 years, Brielle. 3 years I've invested in this marriage. In you. I didn't know. Tears blurred her vision. The doctors never found anything before we got married. He laughed, sharp and cruel. Right. How convenient. You trap me with vows and a ring, then suddenly you're defective. The word hit like another slap. I'm not defective. But even as she said it, something inside her crumbled. Because wasn't she? Her body had failed at the one thing women were supposed to do naturally. Marcus moved closer. She could smell his cologne, the expensive cedar scent she used to love. Now, it made her stomach turn. I built everything for this. His jaw clenched. The business, this house, every decision I made was to create something I could pass down to my children. My legacy. And you. He gestured at her like she was garbage. You can't even give me that. We can adopt. We can look into surrogacy. The words tumbled out desperate. Marcus, please. We can work through this together. I love you. His eyes went cold. Love? You think love matters when you've wasted 3 years of my life? When you've made me look like a fool to my family, my business partners, everyone who keeps asking when we're having kids? I didn't waste anything. We built a life together. We built nothing. He grabbed the envelope, crumpled it in his fist. This is what we built. A dead end. A marriage that can't produce anything of value. Brielle's knees weakened. She gripped the counter for support, the cold marble biting into her palms. You're angry. I understand. But when you calm down, I am calm. And that was the terrifying part. His voice had gone flat, emotionless. I'm seeing clearly for the first time in 3 years. My lawyer's name is Richard Cole. Expect his call tomorrow. Divorce papers will be ready by the end of the week. The floor tilted beneath her feet. Divorce? Marcus, you can't. I can, and I am. He pulled out his phone, already scrolling. You have 72 hours to pack your personal belongings and get out. Anything you brought into this marriage, take it. Everything else stays. This is my home. Her voice rose, panic clawing up her throat. Our home. He looked at her, then really looked at her, and the contempt in his eyes cut deeper than the slap ever could. This was never your home, Brielle. You were a guest, and now you've overstayed your welcome. Please. She reached for him, fingers catching his sleeve. Don't do this. We can get through this if we just... He shook her off so hard she stumbled backward into the counter. Stop begging. It's pathetic. I'm not begging, I'm fighting for us. There is no us. He was already walking away, phone pressed to his ear. Richard? Yeah, it's Marcus. I need those papers drawn up immediately. Brielle stood alone in that massive kitchen, surrounded by marble and stainless steel and everything money could buy. Her reflection stared back from the darkened window, a stranger with a swollen cheek and tears streaming down her face. The ring on her finger caught the light. White gold with a diamond that cost more than most people earned in a year. She'd thought it meant forever. She twisted it off, the metal scraping her knuckle. It clattered onto the counter, spinning twice before settling near the crumpled medical report. Somewhere in the house, Marcus was still talking to his lawyer. His voice drifted through the halls, casual now, discussing assets and settlements like she was a business deal gone bad. Brielle sank to the floor. The tiles were cold against her legs, imported from Italy because Marcus insisted on the best. She'd picked them out herself, excited about building their home together. Their home. The sob came from somewhere deep, ripping through her chest. Then another. Then she couldn't stop, her body shaking with the kind of crying that felt like dying. How had this happened? How had love turned into violence in the space of a single conversation? She'd given him 3 years. Had quit her job because he said his wife shouldn't need to work. Had distanced herself from friends because they didn't fit into his social circle. Had molded herself into the perfect wife for a man who just told her she had no value. The kitchen lights hummed overhead, fluorescent and unforgiving. Brielle pressed her forehead against the cold tile and wondered if this was what breaking felt like. Not dramatic or poetic, just alone on an expensive floor while the man who promised forever negotiated her exit. Before we dive into how Brielle rebuilt herself from nothing, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button on Mr. William Chronicles and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. You're the reason these stories keep coming, and I want to connect with my family around the world. She didn't know how long she stayed there. Long enough for her legs to go numb. Long enough for the tears to dry into salt tracks on her face. When she finally stood, something had shifted inside her. The grief was still there, heavy and suffocating. But underneath it, a spark of something else. Something harder. Marcus thought he destroyed her. Thought reducing her to nothing would make him feel powerful. He had no idea what he'd just created. Brielle walked out of that kitchen with her head high and her heart in pieces. She had 72 hours to pack up 3 years of her life. She'd need every single one. The apartment smelled like mold and someone else's cigarettes. Brielle stood in the doorway, garbage bag of clothes in one hand, her dead phone in the other. This was it. 4th floor walk-up in a neighborhood where sirens sang lullabies every night. 300 square feet that cost half what she didn't have. The previous tenant had left a mattress. Stained, sagging in the middle, springs poking through fabric that might have been white once. She dropped her bag and sat on the edge. The spring screamed. 72 hours had passed like 72 years. Marcus's security had watched her pack, making sure she didn't take anything that belonged to the estate. Her clothes, her books, her laptop from before the marriage. Everything else stayed. The furniture she'd picked out, the dishes she'd registered for. 3 years of building a home, reduced to 2 garbage bags and a broken suitcase. Her phone buzzed back to life, battery at 4%. 17 missed calls from her mom. 12 texts from her sister. She couldn't face them yet. Couldn't explain how she'd ended up here. The mirror above the bathroom sink was cracked down the middle. Brielle studied her reflection, the bruise on her cheek fading to yellow and green. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 3 days. Her bank account had $247. Marcus had already frozen their joint accounts. She needed a job. Multiple jobs. The bakery hired her on the spot. For 30 in the morning starts, minimum wage, no benefits. The owner looked at her application, saw 3 years of homemaker, and shrugged. You know how to follow instructions? Yes. You'll do. Day 1. She burned her hand on an oven rack. Day 3. She mixed up orders and got screamed at by a woman who'd specifically asked for no nuts. Day 7. She cried in the walk-in freezer during her break because her feet hurt so badly she couldn't feel her toes. But the checks cleared. Barely. The cleaning company was her second job. Office buildings after hours, 4 to 8 in the evening. She scrubbed toilets that men couldn't aim into, empty trash bins that smelled like death, vacuumed carpets stained with things she didn't want to identify. The crew leader was a woman named Rita who'd been doing this for 20 years. "Keep your head down, work fast, don't steal anything." Rita handed her a gray uniform that smelled like bleach. "And if any of these office guys try talking to you, ignore them. They think we're invisible until they want something." Brielle nodded, too tired to speak. Third job was the diner. 10 at night until 2 in the morning, when the bars closed and drunk people needed grease. The owner's name was Frank, 60-something with hands that wandered when he thought nobody was looking. "You're pretty." He looked her up and down during the interview. "Pretty girls make good tips." "You got a boyfriend?" "No." The lie came easy. "Good. Men complicate things." His hand touched her lower back, fingers spreading. "You start tonight." She wanted to punch him, wanted to walk out. But rent was due in 2 weeks, and $247 wouldn't cover it. So she smiled and said thank you and tried not to flinch when he touched her again. 6 months blurred together like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. 4:30 alarm. Bakery until noon. Home to change uniforms. Cleaning until 8. Another change. Diner until 2 in the morning. Sleep 3 hours. Repeat. Her hands cracked and bled from chemicals. Her back ached constantly. She lost 15 pounds because eating required time she didn't have. But she paid rent, kept the lights on, survived. The letter came on a Tuesday. Brielle trudged up 4 flights of stairs, legs shaking, carrying day-old bread from a bakery. Her mailbox was usually empty, except for bills she couldn't pay yet. But today, a single envelope, cream-colored, expensive paper. Dr. Philip Harrison embossed on the return address. Her hands shook opening it. "Ms. Winters, I am writing to inform you of a significant error in your previous fertility assessment." The stairs disappeared. The hallway tilted. Brielle grabbed the railing, heart hammering. "Upon thorough review of your original test samples and diagnostic imaging, I have discovered that the results provided to you were incorrect. Your fertility is, in fact, within completely normal range. There is no medical impediment to natural conception." The paper fluttered in her trembling fingers. "I deeply regret this error and any distress it has caused you. Please contact my office at your earliest convenience to discuss this matter further. Sincerely, Dr. Philip Harrison." Brielle read it 4 times, then a 5th. The words didn't change. Normal fertility. No impediment. Error. She wasn't broken. She'd never been broken. Marcus had destroyed their marriage, had slapped her, had thrown her out like trash over a lie. A medical error that had cost her everything. The laugh started small, bubbling up from her chest. Then, louder. Then she was laughing and crying at the same time, sliding down the wall in a hallway that smelled like urine and defeat. She wasn't broken. All that pain, all that shame, all those months of believing she was defective, gone. Erased by a single letter that said the doctors had been wrong. But underneath the relief, something else burned. Anger, hot and bright. Marcus had built his whole case on her being infertile. Had justified everything. The cruelty, the violence, the divorce, because she couldn't give him children. What would he say now? What would he do if he knew the truth? Brielle clutched the letter to her chest, sitting in that disgusting hallway, and felt something shift. The woman who'd begged Marcus not to leave her was dead. Died on that kitchen floor 6 months ago. This woman was different. Harder. Angrier. But mostly, tired of being broken by men who should have loved her. She pulled herself up, legs wobbling. Inside her apartment, she tucked the letter into her nightstand drawer, under bills she couldn't pay and a wedding photo she should have burned. Tomorrow, she'd call Dr. Harrison. Ask questions. Maybe demand answers. Tonight, she had a shift at the diner in 3 hours. Frank would probably grab her waist when she walked past. Drunk men would leave $3 on $40 tabs. Her feet would scream and her back would ache, and she'd stumble home at 2:30 in the morning wondering if this was her life now. But the letter changed something fundamental. She wasn't broken, had never been broken, and someday Marcus would learn that throwing her away was the biggest mistake of his miserable life. Brielle set her alarm for 4:15 and collapsed onto the screaming mattress. For the first time in 6 months, she smiled before falling asleep. The community center smelled like coffee and old books. Brielle started volunteering on Thursday evenings because it was the only night all 3 jobs aligned to give her 4 free hours. She tutored kids who struggled with reading, helped them sound out words their schools had given up on. It wasn't much, but it was hers. "Miss Brielle, what's this word?" 8-year-old Maya pointed at elephant with a finger that had marker stains. "Sound it out. What's the first part?" "Leff, ant." Maya's face scrunched up. "That's stupid. Why isn't it just F?" "Because English is broken." Brielle smiled, and it felt real. "But you figured it out anyway, which makes you smarter than the language." She heard him before she saw him. The sound of a drill, then hammering, coming from a corner where the bookshelf had been listing sideways for months. Nolan Reed was on his knees, toolbox open, completely focused on reinforcing the brackets. Dark hair, maybe mid-30s, wearing a faded shirt with sawdust on the shoulders. He worked with the kind of concentration that made everything else disappear. "You've been working on that shelf for 2 hours." Brielle appeared beside him with 2 cups of terrible community center coffee. He looked up, startled, then smiled, and it changed his whole face. "It's stubborn. Like me. Here." She handed him a cup. "You look like you need caffeine more than I do." Their fingers brushed. His hands were rough, calloused from real work, not soft and manicured like Marcus's had been. "Nolan." He took the coffee gratefully. "And you're Brielle. I've heard you with the kids. You're good at it. Better than serving coffee or scrubbing toilets." She said it without self-pity, just fact. The bar's pretty low. He studied her for a moment, something shifting in his expression. "I teach English at Lincoln High. Do carpentry on weekends because I like working with my hands. Never married because I spent 6 years taking care of my mom through cancer." The honesty caught her off guard. People didn't usually lead with their pain. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For years ago now." His voice went flat. "Still wake up sometimes and forget she's gone. Start to call her about something stupid, then remember." Brielle understood that kind of grief. The phantom limb that kept reaching for something that wasn't there anymore. "I was married," she offered. 3 years. He divorced me when he found out I couldn't have kids." Nolan's jaw tightened. "He sounds like he was threatened by you." Threatened. The word confused her. Men who need their partners to fail so they can feel superior. Nolan set down his coffee. "They're not actually superior to anything. They're just scared." Nobody had ever said anything like that to her before. Marcus had framed her infertility as her personal failure, her inadequacy. The idea that he might have been scared hadn't occurred to her. "Can I drive you home?" Nolan asked when the center closed at 9. "I mean, no pressure. Just noticed you take the bus, and it's dark and—" "Yes." The word came out too fast. "Thank you. That would be amazing." His truck was old, the kind that required jiggling the key and pumping the gas. But it was clean inside, and when he turned on the heat, it actually worked. "Where to?" She gave him the address, embarrassed. He'd see the neighborhood, the building with bars on the windows, and know exactly how far she'd fallen. But he just nodded and drove, asking about her tutoring, telling her about his students who thought Shakespeare was a rapper. 8 minutes. That's all it took to drive to her building. But sitting in his truck felt like the first time in months she could breathe fully. "Thank you," she said, hand on the door, "for the ride and the conversation and everything. Same time next week." His smile was hopeful. "I'll bring better coffee." It became their routine. Thursday nights at the center. Nolan fixing things that probably didn't need fixing. Brielle tutoring kids who just needed someone to believe in them. Then the drive home, 8 minutes that stretched into 15, then 20, because neither wanted it to end. 3 weeks in, they sat in his idling truck outside her building, engine running to keep the heat going. "Tell me something true," Nolan said suddenly. "What?" "Something real about you. Not the surface stuff. Something that matters." Brielle stared through the windshield at her building. For floors of broken dreams and people just trying to survive. I'm scared, she whispered, that I'll always feel this broken. That Marcus was right about me being worthless. That I'll work 3 jobs until I die and never amount to anything more than this. Nolan turned to face her fully. First, you're not broken. You're surviving impossible circumstances with more grace than most people could manage. He paused. Second, Marcus was wrong. About everything. Your worth isn't determined by whether your body functions according to someone else's timeline. But I couldn't give him. You don't know that. Nolan's voice was firm. You know what one doctor said during the worst period of your life? Bodies change. Stress affects everything. Medicine is wrong constantly. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand covered hers. You're extraordinary, Brielle. Marcus spent 3 years with you and somehow missed that entirely, which says everything about his vision, not your value. The tears came fast. Not the broken sobbing from the kitchen floor, but something cleaner. Relief, maybe. Or the beginning of belief. Nolan held her hand and didn't try to fix anything. Just sat with her while she cried, the heater humming, the world outside continuing without them. When she finally looked up, his eyes held something she hadn't seen in so long she'd forgotten what it looked like. Genuine care. No conditions attached. Can I take you to dinner? He asked. Real dinner, not community center coffee and rushed conversations in my truck. I'll work until 2 in the morning most nights. Then breakfast. Or lunch. Or 3 in the afternoon. Whatever works. Brielle smiled through her tears. Breakfast sounds perfect. Their first real date happened on a Sunday morning. Nolan picked her up at 8, drove her to a diner that served pancakes the size of dinner plates. Order whatever you want, he said when she instinctively looked at prices. Nolan, please, let me do this. So she ordered pancakes and eggs and bacon, ate until her stomach hurt because food had been rationed for so long. Nolan watched her with quiet satisfaction, like feeding her mattered more than anything else. Tell me about your mom, she said over coffee. His face softened. She was tough. Raised me alone after my dad left. Worked 2 jobs to put me through college. He paused. When she got sick, I dropped everything. Moved back home, took care of her full time. Watched her disappear piece by piece until there was nothing left but pain. That's why you hold on so tight, Brielle said quietly. He looked startled. What? You check your phone constantly. Ask me 3 times if I'm okay. Need to know where I am. She wasn't accusing, just observing. You lost someone without warning. Now you monitor everyone you care about like they might evaporate. Nolan's throat worked. Does it bother you? Sometimes. She was honest. When it feels like you don't trust me. But mostly I understand it. I'm working on it, he said. The fear doesn't just disappear. I know. She reached across the table, took his hand. But I'm not going anywhere. 3 months in, they kissed for the first time. It was raining, water drumming on his truck roof, while they sat outside her building. Brielle had been mid-sentence about something pointless, when Nolan leaned over and kissed her. Gentle. Asking permission even as he took it. I've wanted to do that for weeks, he breathed against her mouth. Then don't stop. He kissed her harder then, hand cupping her face like she was precious. Like she mattered. Like she was worth choosing. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Brielle felt something crack open in her chest. Not breaking. Opening. Stay with me tonight, she whispered. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. What happened between them that night wasn't just physical. It was Nolan holding her like she might shatter, kissing every scar Marcus had left, whispering that she was beautiful until she almost believed it. It was Brielle letting someone see her completely and not running when he didn't look away. It was 2 broken people choosing to be broken together instead of alone. Afterward, wrapped in sheets that barely kept out the cold, Nolan traced patterns on her shoulder. I'm falling in love with you, he said quietly. Brielle's breath caught. That's terrifying. I know. He kissed her temple. But I'm doing it anyway. She turned to face him, studying the man who'd seen her at rock bottom and hadn't flinched. I think I'm falling too. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, two people who'd survived impossible things built something new from the wreckage. Neither knew that in 6 weeks, everything would change again. Brielle woke up nauseous for the 5th morning in a row. She barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up everything she'd eaten the night before. Nolan appeared in the doorway, concern etched across his face. "That's 3 days this week." He handed her a wet towel. "You need to see a doctor." "I'm fine. Probably just stress from." "Brielle." His voice was gentle but firm. "Please." The pregnancy test sat on the bathroom counter like a live grenade. 2 pink lines. Brielle stared at, hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped the stick. This couldn't be real. The doctors had said Marcus had divorced her because... Brie. Nolan knocked softly. "Everything okay?" She opened the door wordless and handed him the test. His eyes went wide, then wider. We're pregnant." The word felt foreign in her mouth. Impossible. Nolan pulled her into his arms, and she felt his chest shaking. When she looked up, tears were streaming down his face. "We're having a baby," he whispered, voice breaking. "We're actually having a baby." The ultrasound appointment was 3 weeks later. The technician squeezed cold gel onto Brielle's stomach, moved the wand around, then stopped. Her eyes went wide. "Hold on. I need to get Dr. Chun." Panic flooded Brielle's veins. "What's wrong?" "Is the baby?" "Nothing's wrong." The technician's smile was huge. "Just give me 1 second." Dr. Chun appeared, studied the screen, then turned it toward them. "Congratulations. You're carrying triplets." The room tilted. 3. Nolan's voice cracked. 3 babies. 3 healthy babies. Dr. Chun pointed at the screen. "See? Here, and here. All developing perfectly." Brielle couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 3 children. 3 impossible miracles growing inside a body Marcus had called defective. She laughed, then cried, then laughed again until Nolan wrapped his arms around her and they held each other, overwhelmed and terrified and deliriously happy. 5 years passed like a dream. Nolan got offered a position at Westfield Academy, one of the most prestigious private schools in the state. The salary was triple what he'd been making. They could finally breathe. Brielle's online tutoring business exploded after one client posted about her on social media. Suddenly, she had a waiting list, could charge actual rates, was making more from home than all 3 previous jobs combined. They bought a house. Nothing massive, but it had a yard where Sage, River, and Skylar could play. Had bedrooms that weren't falling apart. Had heat that worked and windows that closed properly. The girls started kindergarten at Westfield in matching uniforms, backpacks almost bigger than they were. "They look so grown up," Brielle said, watching them line up with their class. "They look 5. Nolan squeezed her hand. "Because they are 5. Smart mouth." She elbowed him, smiling. Life was good. Better than good. The kind of happiness Brielle had stopped believing existed. Then came the museum field trip. Brielle volunteered as a chaperone because Sage had begged her to come. The Natural History Museum was massive, full of dinosaurs and gems, and enough exhibits to keep 30 kindergartners occupied for hours. "Miss Brielle, can we see the ocean room?" River tugged her sleeve. "After we finish with fossils. I promised your teacher we'd." Her hand brushed someone else's reaching for the same display rail. Brielle looked up into Marcus Harlow's face. Time stopped. The museum noise faded to white static. 5 years collapsed into nothing, and suddenly she was back in that kitchen, cheek burning, world ending. Marcus's expression cycled through shock, confusion, disbelief. His eyes dropped to Sage standing beside her, then found River and Skylar clustered nearby in their matching uniforms. His face went white. Brielle. Her name sounded strangled coming from his mouth. "Marcus." She kept her voice steady, emotionless. His gaze kept darting between her face and the girls. Counting. Calculating. "Are those my daughters?" "Yes." "But you couldn't," the doctor said. He couldn't finish sentences, thoughts fragmenting. Apparently, they were wrong. She adjusted her grip on Sage's hand. Excuse us. Wait. He grabbed her arm. Nolan appeared instantly, stepping between them. Remove your hand. Now. Marcus jerked back like he'd been burned. His eyes took in Nolan, the protective stance, the wedding ring, the way he positioned himself as a shield. Who the hell are you? Her husband. Nolan's voice was ice. And you need to step back. I didn't mean. Marcus looked at Brielle again, and something in his expression cracked. 3 kids. You have 3 kids. Had a good life, actually. Brielle's tone was pleasant, conversational. Better than I ever imagined possible. That's impossible. The specialist confirmed. They were mistaken. She started walking, girls in tow. Have a nice day, Marcus. She felt his eyes boring into her back as they moved toward the ocean exhibit. Felt the weight of 5 years of assumptions shattering behind her. Nolan leaned close. You okay? Ask me later. Her hands were shaking. Right now I need to not fall apart in front of 35-year-olds. That night, after the girls were asleep, she told Nolan everything. About the slap, the divorce, the year of barely surviving. Things she'd mentioned before, but never in full detail. He held her on their couch, fury radiating from him in waves. He hit you. 5 years ago. Different life. I want to kill him. Nolan's voice was flat, serious. Actually kill him. He's not worth it. She turned to face him. But seeing his face when he realized I have 3 healthy daughters, that I built this beautiful life without him. She smiled sharp. That was worth everything. Marcus started showing up everywhere. Outside Westfield during pickup. At the grocery store Brielle frequented. Sitting in his car across from their house. The first time, she ignored it. Second time, she documented it. Third time, she called the police. Ma'am, has he threatened you? Not verbally. But he's following me. Watching my children. Without direct threats, there's not much we can. He's my ex-husband who abused me. Now he's stalking my family. Her voice turned sharp. What exactly needs to happen before you take this seriously? The restraining order was granted within the week. Marcus violated it 3 days later. Brielle was loading groceries into her car when he appeared beside her, reeking of whiskey. I need to know. His eyes were wild, unfocused. Are they mine? Did you cheat? How is this possible? They're not yours. She kept her voice calm despite her racing heart. They're mine and Nolan's. Biology isn't complicated, Marcus. But the test said. The tests were wrong. Or maybe you should ask yourself why you were so quick to believe I was broken. She slammed the trunk. Now get away from me before I call the cops. You ruined my life. Spit flew from his mouth. Everything fell apart after you left. My company, my reputation, everything. I didn't ruin anything. You did that yourself. She pulled out her phone. This is your last warning. He grabbed her wrist, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. You don't get to just move on. You don't get to be happy while I'm... Nolan's fist connected with Marcus's jaw before Brielle even saw him coming. Marcus went down hard, blood streaming from his nose. Nolan stood over him, knuckles split, chest heaving. Touch my wife again, Nolan said quietly, and I will end you. Legally, professionally, physically, whatever it takes. Marcus scrambled backward, hand pressed to his bleeding face. This isn't over. It is. Brielle's voice cut through the parking lot. You're nothing to me, Marcus. A ghost from a life I've outgrown. Whatever you do with your misery is your business. But come near my children again. Come anywhere near the family I built from what you tried to destroy, and I will show you exactly what kind of monster a mother becomes when her babies are threatened. She meant every word. Marcus must have seen it in her eyes because he backed away, stumbling toward his car. That night, Brielle held her daughters extra tight during bedtime stories, kissed their foreheads, and thanked whatever forces in the universe had given her this second chance. Marcus thought seeing her with 3 children had broken something in him. He had no idea what was coming next. That if you're still watching and feeling the tension building right now, tap that like button, because what's coming next is exactly what he deserves. Show this story some love, and comment justice for Brielle if you're rooting for her. and subscribe to Mr. William Chronicles. Trust me, it gets even better from here. Vanessa Harlow had questions. She'd been married to Marcus for 3 years, and something was very wrong. He barely slept anymore, drank expensive scotch at 10 in the morning, sat in his study obsessing over photos of some woman with 3 little girls. When she asked who they were, he'd snapped, "None of your business." That made it her business. Vanessa hired a private investigator, cost her $5,000, and took 2 weeks. The report came back thick as a novel. Brielle Winters, married to subject 2018 to 2021. Divorced citing irreconcilable differences. Subject claimed she was infertile. She now has triplet daughters, age 5. Vanessa read it 3 times. Marcus had told her his first wife couldn't have children, that she'd been diagnosed by multiple specialists, that leaving her had been necessary because family legacy mattered. But she had 3 kids now, which meant either the diagnosis was wrong or Marcus had lied. Vanessa kept digging. Dr. Philip Harrison's practice had closed 2 years ago, but she found him teaching at a medical college downtown. She showed up during his office hours, dressed like she belonged. "Dr. Harrison, I'm Vanessa Harlow. I need 5 minutes of your time." His face went pale at the name. "I don't think. My husband paid you to falsify medical records." She said it flat, watching his reaction. "For a woman named Brielle Winters. I have receipts, bank transfers, dates that match her fertility testing." Harrison sank into his chair. "You need to leave." "I will, after you tell me the truth." His hands shook, reaching for his water glass. "I can't discuss patient information. Then I'll discuss it with the medical board, the state licensing committee, every news outlet in the city." Vanessa leaned forward. "Your choice, doctor." The silence stretched for 30 seconds. She was never infertile. Harrison's voice cracked. Her tests came back normal, completely normal. But Marcus needed her to think otherwise. Vanessa's stomach turned. Why? He'd known since college that he couldn't have children. Some childhood illness damaged him permanently. Harrison wouldn't meet her eyes. "He told me if his wife found out, she'd leave him, take half his assets in the divorce. He needed grounds to divorce her first." "So you destroyed an innocent woman's life for money." "He paid me $50,000. Harrison looked sick. "I have student loans. My practice was failing. I told myself she'd move on, find someone else, never know the difference." Except she believed she was broken for years. Vanessa's voice was ice. "Thought her body had failed her. Lost everything because of your lie." "I know." Tears ran down his face. "I've regretted it every single day since." Vanessa stood. "Write it down. Every detail. Sign it, or I burn your career to the ground." Harrison wrote for 20 minutes. Signed the confession with shaking hands. Vanessa folded it carefully and walked out. She had what she needed. Finding Brielle took 3 phone calls. Vanessa showed up at her office on a Tuesday afternoon, unannounced. "Mrs. Reed, I'm Vanessa Harlow, Marcus's current wife. Can we talk?" Brielle's expression went carefully blank. About the truth your ex-husband buried." Vanessa pulled out the folder. "About what he did to you." They sat in Brielle's office, door closed, while Vanessa laid out everything. The bank transfers, Harrison's confession, Marcus's medical records proving his infertility dated back 15 years. Brielle's hands trembled reading the documents. He knew. Her voice was barely audible. From the beginning, he knew he was the one who couldn't have children, and he paid $50,000 to make you believe it was your fault. Vanessa's throat was tight. "I'm so sorry. For what he did. For not seeing it sooner." "Why are you telling me this?" Brielle looked up, eyes wet. "You're his wife." "I was his wife," Vanessa corrected. "Past tense as of this morning. I filed for divorce and moved out." She paused. "You deserve to know the truth. Deserve to understand that none of it was real. The diagnosis, the blame, all of it was manufactured to protect his ego." Brielle pressed her hands to her face. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. "He destroyed me. The words came out broken. Made me believe I was worthless, that my body was defective. I spent a year working myself to death because I thought I deserved to suffer. You didn't deserve any of it. Vanessa's voice was firm. And he's going to pay for what he did. How? Brielle wiped her eyes. He's rich, connected. People like him don't face consequences. Vanessa smiled, sharp as broken glass. Watch me prove you wrong. The restraining order violation gave them the opening. Marcus showed up at Brielle's house 2 nights later, drunk and raging, pounding on the door at midnight. Nolan called the police, while Brielle recorded everything from the upstairs window. I know you're in there. Marcus's voice echoed through the quiet neighborhood. You think you can just replace me? Just move on like I never mattered. The police arrived within minutes. Arrested him right there on her lawn while neighbors watched from their windows. But Brielle didn't press charges. Instead, she waited 3 days. Let Marcus think he'd gotten away with a warning. Let him settle back into his routine. Then she released everything. Harrison's signed confession. Marcus's medical records. The bank transfers proving payment for fraud. Screenshots of his stalking behavior. Police reports from the restraining order violation. And one carefully edited recording of him admitting he'd known all along. She sent it to every news outlet in the city, posted it on social media, emailed it to Marcus's business partners and board members. The story exploded overnight. Local CEO paid doctor to frame ex-wife as infertile. Marcus Harlow's fraud. How one man's lie destroyed an innocent woman. Infertility deception. The dark truth behind a high-profile divorce. By morning, Marcus's phone was ringing nonstop. By afternoon, 3 board members had resigned. By evening, the company's stock had dropped 30%. Brielle watched it unfold from her living room. Nolan beside her, girls sleeping upstairs. How do you feel? He asked quietly. Lighter. She leaned against him. Like I've been carrying something heavy for 5 years and finally put it down. He'll come after you for this. Let him try. Brielle's voice was steady. I have the truth. He has nothing but lies that everyone can now see. Marcus's company collapsed within 2 weeks. The board voted him out. Investors pulled funding. Partners terminated contracts. His reputation, built over 15 years, crumbled in days. His mother called Brielle once. You've destroyed my son. Your son destroyed himself, Brielle replied calmly. I just made sure everyone knew about it. The call ended with dial tone. Vanessa's divorce was finalized quickly. Marcus had hidden assets, tried to fight the settlement. But Vanessa's lawyers were better. She walked away with $4 million and full rights to the house they'd shared. She sent Brielle a text 3 months later. Thank you for showing me escape was possible. I'm starting over too. Turns out we're both stronger than he ever gave us credit for. Brielle smiled reading it. Typed back. We were always strong. He just convinced us we weren't. Good luck with your new beginning. 6 months after the story broke, Brielle was putting the girls to bed when Sage asked a question. Mommy, who's the man that used to yell at our house? Brielle's chest tightened. Someone from a long time ago. He's gone now. Did he hurt you? Once. But I'm okay now. Sage studied her with those 2 wise 5-year-old eyes. You're brave. So are you, baby. Brielle kissed her forehead. All 3 of you are the bravest people I know. After the girls were asleep, Brielle stood in their doorway watching them breathe. Sage sprawled sideways, River clutching a stuffed elephant, Skylar perfectly still like a little angel. 3 impossible miracles. 3 children that Marcus had sworn could never exist. He tried to break her, tried to convince her she was defective, worthless, incapable of the one thing women were supposed to do. Instead, she'd proven him wrong in the most complete way possible. And now the whole world knew the truth. The media feeding frenzy lasted 3 weeks. Every news channel ran the story. Every social media platform exploded with commentary. Marcus Harlow's face was everywhere, attached to words like fraud, and abuser, and liar. His company's stock hit 0 on day 19. Harlow Industries filed for bankruptcy on day 22. 15 years of building an empire, gone. The board of directors released a statement calling Marcus's actions reprehensible and unforgivable. His name was stripped from the building. His penthouse went up for sale. His cars were repossessed. His country club membership was revoked. But Brielle didn't watch any of it. She was too busy living. The girl's 7th birthday party happened on a Saturday afternoon in their backyard. 20 kids running wild. Cake smeared on faces, laughter echoing off the fence. Sage organized a treasure hunt, bossing around children twice her age. River broke every rule of musical chairs and somehow won anyway. Skylar sat quietly making friendship bracelets, distributing them like tiny gifts from a queen. Nolan manned the grill, apron tied around his waist, making hot dogs for an army of 7-year-olds. "You're hogging the good ones," Brielle accused, stealing a burger off his plate. "I've been working for 3 hours. I've earned this." He kissed her temple. "Besides, you had 2 cupcakes already. It's my daughter's birthday. I'm allowed." "Our daughters," he corrected gently. The word still made her chest tight with gratitude. Nolan had adopted all 3 girls 2 years ago. Legally, officially, they were Sage, River, and Skylar Reed. Marcus had no claim, no rights, no connection to these children he'd sworn could never exist. "Mom." River appeared, covered in grass stains and frosting. "Can we do presents now? After everyone eats, baby." "But that's forever." Brielle laughed, pulling her daughter close despite the sticky mess. 30 minutes is not forever. It is when you're 7. Watching her children play, Brielle felt something settle deep in her bones. Peace. The kind that came from knowing you'd survived the worst and come out stronger. Her tutoring business now had a waiting list 6 months long. She'd hired 3 other tutors to help manage the demand. They just signed a lease on actual office space. Nolan had been promoted to department head at Westfield. The salary increase meant they could finally stop worrying about every dollar. They'd upgraded to a bigger house last year. 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a yard big enough for a swing set. Nothing extravagant, but it was theirs. Paid for with money they'd earned, not inherited or manipulated. The doorbell rang during cake cutting. Nolan went to answer it, came back looking puzzled. "There's a woman here asking for you. Says her name is Vanessa." Brielle's stomach clenched. She hadn't seen Marcus's ex-wife since that day in her office 2 years ago. Vanessa stood on the porch, thinner than Brielle remembered, hair shorter. But her eyes were clearer, lighter. "I'm sorry to show up unannounced." Vanessa held a wrapped gift. "I just wanted to give this to you and say thank you. Thank you for showing me the truth, for being brave enough to expose him." Vanessa's voice cracked. "I spent 3 years married to a man who would have destroyed me eventually. You saved my life." Brielle took the gift, throat tight. "What are you doing now?" "I opened a nonprofit. We help women leave abusive marriages, provide legal assistance, temporary housing, job training." Vanessa smiled. "Turns out getting $4 million in a divorce settlement can do a lot of good when you point it in the right direction." "That's incredible. It's necessary." Vanessa glanced at the party behind Brielle. "Your daughters are beautiful. He never deserved to be in their lives." "No," Brielle agreed. "He didn't." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "Is he?" Brielle couldn't finish the question. "Living in a 1-bedroom apartment on the east side. Working as a sales associate at a furniture store." Vanessa's tone held no satisfaction, just fact. "His mother disowned him. His friends won't return his calls. He's alone." Brielle waited for the surge of vindication, the satisfaction of knowing he'd lost everything. But all she felt was tired. "I hope he finds peace eventually," she said quietly. "Not for him. For me. Because carrying anger is exhausting, and I'm done being exhausted." Vanessa nodded, understanding. "Me too." After Vanessa left, Brielle opened the gift. Inside was a framed photo of 3 women standing together at what looked like a nonprofit opening. Vanessa in the middle, flanked by 2 others, all smiling. The card read, "We rise by lifting others. Thank you for lifting me. V." That night, after the guests had gone and the girls were crashed out in a sugar-induced coma, Brielle and Nolan sat on their back porch. Vanessa came by, she said. I saw. You okay? Better than okay. Brielle leaned against him. She's doing good things. Helping people. Turns out surviving Marcus Harlow comes with a responsibility to help other people survive too. You thinking about getting involved? Maybe. She turned the idea over in her mind. I could offer free tutoring to women trying to get their GEDs. Help them get back on their feet. You're already working 60-hour weeks, so I'll work 65. She smiled. Besides, you know I can't sit still. I know. He kissed her hair. It's one of the things I love about you. Inside, one of the girls called out in her sleep. Brielle started to get up, but Nolan waved her off. I've got it. You handled the party. My turn. She watched him disappear into the house. This man who'd chosen her when she had nothing, who'd built a family with her from absolute wreckage, who loved her daughters like they'd always been his. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Former CEO Marcus Harlow arrested for public intoxication, resisting arrest. Brielle deleted the notification without reading the article. She didn't need to know. Didn't need to track his downfall or measure his suffering against hers. He'd become irrelevant the moment she'd stopped letting his opinion of her matter. You'll never be a mother. That's what he'd told her with such cruel certainty. She thought about Sage's fierce independence, River's wild joy, Skylar's quiet wisdom. Thought about the life she'd built from nothing but will and stubbornness and refusal to stay broken. Marcus had been wrong about everything. She wasn't just a mother. She was a survivor who'd turned pain into power. A woman who'd been told she was worthless and built an empire of self-worth from the ashes of his cruelty. He'd tried to destroy her with a lie. She'd destroyed him with the truth. And the best part? She'd moved on completely, built a beautiful life that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with love. Marcus would spend the rest of his life haunted by what he'd lost. Brielle would spend the rest of hers grateful for what she'd gained. Nolan came back outside, monitor in hand. Rivers talking in her sleep again. Something about dragons and ice cream. Sounds about right for her. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching lightning bugs blink in the yard where their daughters would play tomorrow. We made it, Nolan said quietly. We did. 7 years ago, Brielle had been alone on a kitchen floor, believing her life was over. Now she sat on a porch she owned, listening to 3 children breathe safely in their beds, held by a man who'd chosen to love her when she couldn't love herself. Marcus had tried to shatter her. Instead, she'd shattered his pride simply by refusing to accept his definition of her worth. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. Not revenge, not vindication, just living well, just being happy, just proving every cruel word he'd ever spoken wrong by building a life so full of love he could never touch it. She'd won, not by destroying him, by saving herself. That if this story moved you, don't forget to hit that like button. It truly helps the channel grow. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and your favorite moment in Brielle's journey. And subscribe to Mr. William Chronicles so you never miss stories like this. We share stories about people who turned their pain into power, and trust me, there's so much more coming. See you in the next one.